Broadcasting in the evenings on WCPT 820 Chicago's Progressive Talk, and in the afternoons on AM 950, the Progressive Voice of Minnesota. It is the Matt McNeil Show. Joining us right now is, of course, a regular guest here. I'm going to call him a regular guest. We have him on all the time. Bill Corbett, of course, is RiffTrax. If you've not watched them, they are hilarious. He, of course, got the start over at Mystery Science Theater 3000. He, of course, they're going to be doing a live show, which we're going to talk about as well, and also just we talk about entertainment and stuff like that because it's just really cool to talk to Bill Corbett. Hi, Bill. How are we today?
Hey, guys. Matt, it's just one of you there, right?
Yeah, just me.
One Matt.
just me by myself today. Although it was great, and for people behind the scenes, because I did post this picture up on social media, when Cliff Schechter was in town, you and I and Cliff went and got breakfast, and that was good fun. I did appreciate that.
Yeah, we got the meeting of the brain trust there over some good uptown breakfast.
Oh, yes, and we all realized, not like Robert F. Kennedy Jr., we all have worms in there.
Mine are the biggest.
My parasite is my best friend. All right, it's RiffTrax Live. I'm not saying what I'm going to let you take the movie here. You guys are going to be live on Saturday, July 27th. This is something you guys broadcast out. We've talked about this with Fathom. You guys broadcast this out to theaters across the country, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, we've done this since 2009, and usually we do it from Nashville. And that's just because there happens to be a production company there that has worked with Fathom Events a lot, and they suggested it, and it was a good fit. But every now and then we like to bring it back home. And we've done two other live shows from Minneapolis before. One was a Sharknado, which was not my favorite just because it was already slightly funny, but you know. And the other one was the Mystery Science Theater reunion show, which was a big hit. We had all the old gang back.
Oh, well, and this time... and I'm glad you brought that up because you and I have over the years, and also speaking of MST3K, Trace Ballou, we've had him on the air, and we've talked about what makes a movie great to riff is that the people behind it took it dead serious, even though it's a piece of trash, and and we can go back and forth on like a movie like Roadhouse, because Roadhouse, it clearly, at the time, I thought this was a piece of trash. A lot of people tried to say, oh, we knew it was being tongue-in-cheek. I was like, I don't know. I think you guys were just trying to push out a movie really fast, and now all of a sudden it's become kind of so kitschy. You've acted like you intended on doing it. It's not Manos Hands of Fate. Come on, man. It kind of is to a point. But you've picked up another one, and speaking of Swayze, it's another one of his movies, which I think they tried to make this very seriously, but it has become... just riffing gold, and you guys you're bringing what the masses want to them live in July. So what is the movie you guys are doing?
It is Point Break, and it is just 90s gold. They actually remade it again in 2015, but it didn't have the same kitschy fun, and that just sort of came and went real quickly. What's notable about it is that it's directed by Catherine Bigelow, who's actually like a very good director with the right material. She directed Hurt Locker about the Iraq War and a bunch of other stuff. Like, she's got real chops. But this was a little bit when she was kind of new and not brand new, but taking on projects that were given to her. And it's a weird disconnect because it has moments of actual kind of wow beauty in the cinematography and the direction. But the script is so dopey and so kitschy. And everyone's playing it for real, Swayze and young Keanu Reeves, pre-John Wick is in it. And
was that before Speed, too? That was before Speed, wasn't it? Right around then.
Yes, I think it was. Or not much, or like in the same time, if anything. But he was still, like young Keanu, and he was very fresh faced. He's a very beloved guy, justifiably, I think. It also has Gary Busey in it, who plays like his FBI supervisor. And he just plays a goon like he usually does. And, it somehow combines bank robbery with surfing, with skydiving.
Yes.
And it's just, it's like the Mountain Dew generation produced a movie.
Well, the trope I've always loved of movies like this is the 25-year-old seasoned veteran cop. Things like he knows things. What are you talking about, man? You're basically all you're worrying about is the Timberwolves game coming up later on. You're not
exactly. Yeah, he's. They keep saying that he's like he's a rookie because he was like a star quarterback in college. But then he gets entrusted with an enormous amount of responsibility, like right off the bat.
Yeah, it generally ends up like Reservoir Dogs. I mean, if that's I don't want to spoil anything with Reservoir Dogs, but it generally goes badly there, and you try to give people that are not ready for the primetime light. But
just to sizzle the steak a little bit, they're tracking down a bank robbery team that holds up banks wearing ex-president masks, which is a nice touch. But that, the fact that it's like bank robberies are the crime makes it almost quaint. It's not like murder or terrorism or serial killers. It's just like they keep robbing banks.
Well, they seem to know exactly where they're at, which, kind of, why aren't you just going? Well, never mind. Today, by the way, they just do crypto. It just be eventually, they'd be robbing her and everyone would be freely giving them the money.
It's the answer to everything.
Well, which brings up a point. You talked about the remake of this, and you're doing the absolute original pure gold that is the only one anyone should see. And once again, get tickets. Not only can you get tickets to go see them live at the State Theater on Saturday, July 27th, the Point Break riff, but as well, how many theaters nationwide are you guys going to be in?
Usually a little over 700.
Nice.
That's about the normal amount we get. It comes and goes a little bit. For a while, we were in Canada. And then Canada said, "Nah, we're good without you guys." There was a theater chain up there that was giving it a shot. But, 700 across the U.S.
Well, and so Chicago, I'm going to presume multiple theaters down there. Get the tickets.
Oh yeah.
July 27th. You go see it. You'll laugh your caboose off. But you brought up the remake of Point Break, and I just watched the Jake Gyllenhaal remake of Roadhouse. You can't – although, okay, I'll give Roadhouse a little bit of the kitschiness of it. The villain there was pretty, definitely it was in that Roadhouse vein. Mm-hmm. But I think you revisit these things, and it's almost like it's a desperate attempt by the people that were behind the original one to try to validate the first one. And it, for the most part, it just doesn't work, just because when you strike gold like a Point Break or a Roadhouse, which truly is gold. I mean, and they might not want me to call it that. But when you really get that, oh, my God, this is so bad it's good, you can't just go back and redo it again, because I think that there's a lot of unseen elements that happen to create something like that.
Oh, absolutely. And, sometimes it's just the chemistry and the combination of eccentric things, including the performers. And here we have a common denominator of Patrick Swayze, who was a impossibly good-looking, graceful guy of the early 90s. But he found his way to a lot of kitschy stuff somehow. He played it absolutely straight. But the original, I've seen the new Roadhouse now, and it had its good points. Like, some of the fight scenes were great, and Jake Gyllenhaal's six-pack, if it wasn't digitally enhanced, was pretty impressive. But it's just the charm of the whole original idea of it being like, he is like a notoriously great bouncer instead of like, here's an MMA guy slumming it. The fact that it's like he's a famous bar bouncer was the thing that really brought the first one together, in my opinion.
It's like being like a famous beer delivery man. And
exactly.
That's Jake over there. Look at him deliver the beer. And you're like, what?
Yeah.
You can't.
Yeah. Famous bar bouncers. Bar bouncers to me are like, high school linemen that, fell on hard times. They're just hanging around the same bar they did after college and Just why don't you stand by the door? You're a big guy.
Your drinks are comped if you basically stand there. Don't get drunk during the show. What shift? We'll help you out afterwards. So once again, we'll talk about this. I'll make sure I plug that again a little bit later on. I do want to venture in to the summer movie thing because am I crazy? The summer movie list this year, there are some ones that look really good, like the Furiosa one, the next Mad Max. Hemsworth looks. Was it Dementis? Is his character in there? That looks fantastic. And then of course the Deadpool movie. If they do it anything like the first two, that should be an absolute hoot. But it just doesn't feel like there's a lot of really big movies coming out this summer.
Yeah, I think the industry is still reeling and figuring out what to do and not making the best choices all the time. It seems like the days of Marvel guaranteed success are no longer with us. It's just they made too much lore and too many movies too quickly, and they extended it to television. And the last one they did, I forget which one was
the Marvels.
Last, but yeah, the Marvels. That was actually okay, like for a Marvel movie. Saw it on Disney Plus and said, all right, but I just don't think people are willing to go out to a theater unless it's like everybody. It just gets this certain word of mouth. Same thing with the DC movies. Aquaman came and went, despite a very charming leading guy, Jason Momoa. So, I am looking forward to the Furiosa movie. I did like the Mad Max thing that preceded it. Well,
and you talked about, when you were talking about Gyllenhaal and his abs and they enhance him. The fact that, George Miller is still doing traditional stunts like they, very different from 1940s, but
he
still
is a boss, that guy.
Going to Namibia and filming there and really making this an outstanding film. I remember coming out of Fury Road and saying, am I crazy or is that one of the best movies I've ever seen? It was just so good.
Impressive.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this. I will say, too, you go back into the Marvel things, and I think that there is this interesting point someone made. He said, the problem Marvel had was the last two movies, the Endgame, that Endgame was the best movie they could have made. They could not have done that better. It was the ultimate comic book movie, and then the cliff off of that, there's just no way you are going to up that. And as you said, I think part of it is the Disney Plus, the TV stuff. It kind of diluted the product, but you pinnacled out. You can only do so many films after that. And you'd better have your A-list stars. I mean, they did the Guardians of the Galaxy 3 did somewhat okay, but you really you have not been able to catch that fire again because I actually, to a point, I agree with it. I think the Endgame was just so good; it wrapped up so many movies so well, and it just at that point you almost kind of say, "All right, guys, turn off the lights, shut the door, and off you go."
Yeah, I agree. It really was the buildup of years, and it started with Iron Man mostly, and it ended with Iron Man. And it kind of, and you got your sort of most bankable star there, and Robert Downey Jr. leading the arc through, and it just gathered nicely, and it ended nicely, and then they tried to kind of like pull it all apart again into disparate strands and introduce the whole multiverse thing, which was just baffling and feels kind of lazy as storytelling to me.
Well, and I do like the fact that Deadpool. This is one of the reasons why I do like Deadpool. Is Deadpool does not have any problem looking at them. It's like, well, that's just lazy writing.
Absolutely,
that's just lazy writing.
Yeah, it's very charming, and it's from the comic books. That's like a style they settled on him from the comic books. He knows he's in a comic book, so he knows he's in a movie now. So.
Well, if he can, if Deadpool ends up saving that, because we already know they're going to drive that franchise into the ground. They will. They'll just kill it. It will be, just garbage in the future. But at the same time, if Deadpool somehow managed to resurrect that franchise, especially before the X-Men and the Fantastic Four get there, well, God bless him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bill, I tell you what, I'm going to take a break here because you not only, once again, we want to encourage everyone to go on out and see the RiffTrax live coming up here in July. At your local theater, or if you're at the State Theater in Minneapolis. We'll get to that once again here in just a second. But I wanted to come back because you brought in Seinfeld, and you and I have talked repeatedly about television movies morphing and changing, and somebody needs to send our shows to Jerry Seinfeld because he seems to not understand that at all, which is really surprising considering how good he is. Bill Corbett, kind enough to join us. RiffTrax, Mystery Science Theater 3000. We'll take a break. Come on back. It's the Matt McNeil Show. It's the Matt McNeil Show on your Friday. Bill Corbett from RiffTrax, kind enough to join us once again today. Bill, you and I both, I think, were somewhat stunned. Jerry Seinfeld is an icon. He's one of the funniest human beings. I always watch all of his comedy specials when they come out on Netflix and stuff. But he went on, I think it was the New Yorker, and he made some comments and basically said PC crap is why basically the sitcom that used to exist on network TV doesn't exist anymore. And the first thing I said is that, no, it's the industry that seems to have killed off the sitcom, because the sitcoms are alive and well. I mean, Beef and Ted Lasso and stuff like that, they're all on streaming services now. And there's tons of stand-up comedy specials. And so there's a lot of these options out there. He just seems to put forward the idea that somehow being PC was the reason why all this ended.
I don't know what the man is going on about, honestly, because it's a shame, really, because I was so, to be honest, on his stand-up. I think he's a great performer, but his show was something special. And, that you just cannot take that away from him. It's iconic. And he always struck me as a really smart guy. So to see him sort of lean back into this anti-PC woke thing is weird, because he's not really offering a lot of specifics. The only thing I could find is that basically he thinks now that, unlike back in, he kind of contrasts it with when he grew up and we grew up, MASH is on, Cheers, Mary Tyler Moore, all those, that you could just come home and watch those and know they were going to be great. And he's saying now that they couldn't happen because it would go through so many committees. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't think you're right about that. Like, I remember Mary Tyler Moore, I know famously they wanted to have her be a divorced woman, and the studio said, no, that's a little spicy for our audience. We need her to be. So I really don't know the specifics of his complaint. And I'm really suspicious when anybody baby boomer age or thereabouts starts talking about this stuff now, because it just seems like, okay, you're a cranky old man now.
Man yells at cloud.
I don't know what to tell you. Like, get specific or be quiet.
Well, and you and I have talked about the fact that the problem here isn't PC. It's the fact that these TV networks about 20, 25 years ago said, hey, I can start doing reality television, and it cost me 1/10 the amount of one of these sitcoms does, and that's all you see. I mean, it's either, it's either the same formulaic shows or reality television, and game shows. They're bringing back game shows now because they're cheap, and because of that, the streaming services picked up the slack, and that's where you're finding. I mean, it's not like they're not there. And it just is. Yeah. Does he not understand that most people watch television now through streaming services, not the networks?
I mean, it's just comparing. Not even apples and oranges doesn't even do it justice. Yeah. It's like apples and hammers is like the state of entertainment, TV entertainment today compared to the 90s, and much less the 70s with Mary Tyler Moore and MASH. I mean, and we had the writer's strike last year. We had the the SAG after strikes. And so a lot of it is based on how entertainment is owned and delivered and monetized now. So if he has any complaints about that, he'd be a nice 900-pound gorilla to talk about that.
Yeah.
But the whole idea of blaming it on woke at this point is dumb, and it seems dumber than him. But I think he's just decided to be a cranky old guy because it's not the reality. He might have had an individual experience in the 90s with that show with him and Larry David, who, by the way, just got done with a 12 to 13 or 14 year run of Curb Your Enthusiasm, where he was incredibly non-PC.
Oh yeah,
his partner He could say all the dirty words he wanted to, and he played a cranky old sort of prejudiced guy who was a pain in the ass to everybody. But it just, for him to just kind of not acknowledge that. Oh, Always Sunny in Philadelphia. There's a show that's been running forever too.
Yeah.
The characters are more reprehensible than the Seinfeld gang was, and it's so I don't know what he's after here, saying it's PC. It seems like a, kicking the wrong dog.
Well,
shouldn't kick any dogs.
Well, thanks, Christy. but I will say too, I agree with you wholeheartedly. It's there's one thing about criticizing someone for their behavior, Louis C.K. Unacceptable behavior. There's another thing about going out there and criticizing people whose only point of comedy is to mock or ridicule a specific subsect of human being, which the Rob Schneiders, the Roseanne Barrs sort of thing. There's no problem, and I just don't. And my God, you want raunchy? Go take a look at half the damn shows on streaming services. I mean, it doesn't leave a lot to the imagination.
I don't know what he wants, because he just released. I mean, this was sort of a press tour for his new Netflix movie called Unfrosted, about the development of the Pop-Tart, which I watched, and I have to say, It's not like a lot of belly laughs for me, but it was silly and it was whimsical, and I kind of appreciated it, and I got some laughs out of it. It was not any kind of edgy thing that, couldn't be shown. And I don't know if he's complaining about that, but it just feels weird. This is also kind of personal to MST3K and RiffTrax, given that we have faced the same issues. I'm not as old as Jerry, but I'm getting there. And we were on TV in the 90s, albeit at a much, 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 much smaller scale. But we have had to adjust as people kind of give us feedback. It's like, that doesn't feel good anymore. Like, don't make those kind of jokes. I love your stuff, but that alienates me. And to me, that is something worth listening to. Doesn't mean you have to accept everything on face value, but to just dismiss it like, nah, screw you.
Yeah.
I want to do the jokes I've always done. It's wrong.
Bill Corbett is with RiffTrax. Go to RiffTrax.com. There are some hilarious bits they got out there, but once again, catch them live on Saturday, July 27th. It's Point Break. You can catch them live in person at the State Theater. Tickets still available, but you can catch them in your local theater as well. I'll link to all this later on. Bill Corbett. Bill, as always, thank you, my friend.
Thanks, Matt.
Take care.
As always.
Chicago, have a good weekend. Minneapolis, St. Paul, hour 2 up next.